Everyone, welcome to our great session today about e-commerce experiences that stick. We're very fortunate to have Doug Hollinger joining us today. Doug is the VP of Strategy at BVA. He packs over 20 years in digital and in commerce. Had amazing time and enjoying the agency just before the COVID struck in February 2020. BVA, if you don't know, BVA is a commerce agency that incubates and grows the direct-to-consumer brands that people love. With the largest, most versatile client roster in the industry, they take pride in launching more brands on Shopify Plus than any other agency, and are currently managing a client portfolio that generates nearly $1 billion annually in gross merchandise volume. Is that right?
I think so. In that area.
Brilliant. So, Doug, thanks so much for joining me today. We really wanted to kind of have you for a conversation to see, what trends you guys are seeing in the industry. This is a very disruptive time, of course. If we even put aside COVID-19 for a second, this is a time where we see consumers develop new behaviors, new types of decision rules. The standards for online shopping are on the rise. And then if we add on top of that, COVID-19 and the fact that traffic online is booming, e-commerce is growing in rates that we've never seen. And we also have new types of shoppers going online now with completely different expectations. So was really interested to first kind of ask you what are the main challenges or maybe opportunities that you're seeing in this new situation for retail brands.
Sure. And thanks, Gal, for having me on this conversation. Is really interesting. I always like chatting about kind of what's happening in the market and meeting with smart partners to kind of solve these issues. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting time. E-commerce has always been evolving, right? That's partly why I think a lot of us are involved in it. Again, 20 years ago it was getting started. There was no playbook, but even now it feels like the playbook, it felt a little more settled, but I think we're seeing at a minimum an acceleration, right? You're seeing a lot of analysis right now about kind of this may be accelerated as 5 years into the future in terms of adoption and trends and percentages of people shopping online. And I think that's usually phrased in terms of consumer behavior. But I think, of course, the correlation is it's accelerated or forced companies to get accelerated themselves in preparation for being more e-commerce centric or more direct-to-consumer focused. And so I find that just as fascinating as the consumer behavior is how our companies and our clients responding to this shift and by necessity. And as the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So we have to get creative and sometimes forced to. But I think it's been obviously very scary, and some industries are impacted much harder than others, like hospitality and travel and things like that. But a lot of our clients are also in industries that are doing really well because they have to do with being home or comfort or ways to that naturally lend themselves to a direct consumer experience. So on the one hand, we're seeing kind of clients that are struggling maybe because of the challenges that are going on. Maybe they were very dependent on other channels and they're having to pivot to e-com, or maybe they had stores or were planning to open retail presence and that's been put on hold. But at the same time, we also have clients that they have the opposite problems, which are still problems, which is sometimes I've got so much demand. I don't know how to, my supply chain is breaking, or there's some obvious problems right now too with fulfillment because of shipping problems and issues. So if nothing else, it's an interesting time, more interesting even than normal. And we're seeing the rate of change. So we're really focused, I think, I guess to boil it down, on how to work with our clients on just being prepared to act in more quickly. And when your normal planning cycles, the normal expectations, the normal cadence or seasonality of commerce is disrupted like this, how do you become not just a digitally oriented company, but how do you really become a more agile company in your ability to react to the market and blaze a path forward when all the rules are kind of seem up in the air right now.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that, I think agility is really key.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what we're seeing right now is whoever is the quickest to respond, but respond in a strategic way rather than just putting out fires, are that like, so these are the brands that we're seeing really starting to harness the success, that
Right.
the ones who were able to kind of pivot very fast back in March, back in April, are now seeing not only traffic booming by 50% uplift, but are maintaining that same percentage of growth in revenue and in sales.
Right.
In that respect, I was curious to ask if, what's your advice for brands that are now seeing all of this traffic coming in? They're seeing a lot more customers than they used to be, having on their website.
Right.
What could be like a good focus area for them to
Yeah, it's a good question because, like you said, I think we're seeing a couple of different kinds where maybe some clients took advantage of the situation in a good way, right, by suddenly pivoting even their product set. So they're offering masks right now, for example, and they're picking up a lot of customers with maybe a category they didn't even have before. So depending on that brand, if the mask fits within your offering, that's a pretty easy conversion to sort of, hey, look at my other stuff. If it's not, then I think you can still leverage those new customers, but maybe not plan on retaining 50% of them. So that's a tricky thing, right? Is who are these customers? Why are they here? And really knowing how to qualify this influx. But I think to your point, regardless of how they got here and what we have to offer, I think you still need to be mindful of, okay, I've got exposure to these people. What can I do with this? And that agility, I think, is interesting because you don't want to just react, because we've seen also some things going on culturally in the US in particular, where brands are kind of caught, like, do I respond to each of these things openly or do I not? And it's harder when you don't even know who these customers are coming in and your positioning. But what I would say is, in general, right, with direct-to-consumer brands, your brand is kind of a personality, and it's better to just be authentic with that and try to maybe not be too responsive to every little thing that comes through, but you still need to know who you are as a brand and what direction you're going. And then being flexible along the way, but at least you're heading in the same direction. So maybe this road is blocked, but I know I'm still heading east. And I think that's where the brands that have a strong sense of self and purpose and all of that are still going to win. They're going to attract and retain the right people that are a match for them. And so I think you can't worry too much about, I got to retain all these people. It's great that these folks are here right now, but I think at the same time, you will pick up the right customers for you and retain them if you're true to that brand story and you're authentic and as transparent as possible about that and kind of let them experience you. This is just an interesting, because of the acceleration and people trying things sometimes out of necessity because the brands that they know maybe are sold out. I think, I've talked even before about how this brand loyalty is kind of in flux too. So I think there's a higher premium on being that authentic brand and really living it and expressing this all the way through people's interactions with you, from the first time you acquire them through the fulfillment process, and even when they're opening the box or experiencing the product. So yeah, it's an interesting question, but I think the fundamentals are the same. It's just if you find a gap in your ability to execute in whatever way, through marketing or through e-commerce or fulfillment or what have you, I think you just want to really focus on those areas and make sure that you don't have any gaps in the kind of life cycle of the customer. And once you have that, then you can innovate and you can take advantage and maybe differentiate yourself from the competition.
how can you innovate? I mean, this is probably one of the most innovative industries as is, right?
Yes.
Moving so fast, exactly as you mentioned. So, what would such a an innovation look like?
Yeah, and I think innovation, we used to talk about it, let's say 10 years ago, it was like, oh, this cool new feature, and it would take people a while to do a feature. Well, now a lot of that's baked into Shopify or other platforms, right? You're not gonna, or even if you innovate on a feature set or an app, it's not gonna last very long, right? So that innovation cycle is shorter. So I think it's more, again, being creative about what you have. So we've talked to a couple clients and even prospects recently who, given COVID, they had retail presence.
Mm-hmm.
Just as an example, they had a retail presence. They had, for example, salespeople that are used to working in the retail environment. Those stores had to close because of COVID. But they didn't just let the people go. They actually found a way to leverage those store associates who were really brand ambassadors that could help people find the right fit for them. They're leveraging them in an online way so they can be almost like a VIP experience, right? And they can leverage them through a digital channel, and those people become kind of salespeople virtually through Zoom or other means. So this could be as kind of like, hey, let's just strap something together. Let's give them an iPad and sign them up. And so when people come in, either through chat or other means or through video conferences when people sign up, they're finding creative ways to use their resources. So they're not going and buying necessarily new technology. They might be leveraging what they already have, but they're doing it in a creative and fresh way and then learning from that. So that's the next thing, is not just throw it against the wall and see what sticks, but really evaluate, is this working? And I think those sorts of ability to open yourself up to a test and learn attitude, as long as somebody's taking the learnings and the right learnings and then applying them back, that's the key. And then of course, on top of that, you might discover, hey, maybe we do have an opportunity for new technology to be smarter, to leverage our data better, to have machine learning inform some of these things that we're doing. So I'd say start with the best companies I see are kind of innovating with what they have, but getting scrappy and doing the best they have with what they have. And then they're saying, okay, now we found there's maybe an opportunity here. Maybe I'm going to change my investments. Maybe I was going to invest in stores. I need to put it in some online or technologies or vice versa. So I think that nimbleness comes in to play everywhere, right? It's being nimble with your assets and resources. It's being nimble to then take learnings and feed it back into your planning cycle. And then it's being nimble about even budgets and planning cycles. So maybe we used to work up a 12-month plan. Who knows what's going to happen in 12 months, right? Let's focus on the next 6 to 8 weeks and kind of do that. Again, knowing you're heading in a certain direction, but I think we're seeing that too, a compression of planning cycles and really flexibility and a flattening of the approval processes so that the people that can actually change and impact things are empowered to do that in a more rapid way.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it that way until you described it so well. It's as if companies are pushed to reinvent their business model.
Yes.
And it touches how they operate, but it also touches what they do with their personnel, how they train their employees, and how they allocate their resources, and how they also move information from one place to the other in a way that's very effective and allows the business to run very fast. I think that in the past we used to see this kind of rethinking about the business model in like cycles of 25 years, 50 years.
Right.
And it's happening in 5 months. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it's almost like we're in a lab right now, right? And so you have to do it, and in a way that's super scary, but it also gives us permission. And the nice thing is, most companies are doing this at the same time everybody else is doing it. So it's not like a company's like, I'm going to do this weird thing nobody's ever tried before on my own. It's like they're all facing the same thing. And just like all of us, a lot of people are suddenly working from home. They never did. And that's a big experiment. I think it's the same thing with retail and direct-to-consumer commerce. What makes it a little less scary, I think, is we're kind of on an even ground, and the consumers have kind of understand some of the challenges that are happening all at the same time. And so I think that makes it even maybe more incentive to go ahead and try some stuff, because people could be a little more forgiving, or they might understand where it's coming from, right? And I think to me, that's good news. It means we can play around with some stuff, including empowering your employees maybe to do more than you would have before, as long as you're giving them some guidance and they know where you're headed again, and what the goals are. And I find that all really exciting and kind of maybe perversely fun, but I find it interesting to see and encourage that that's done. You still have the same business fundamentals. We still got to make money. We still got to have the right size of employees and products, et cetera. But I think when you're willing to embrace what's happening and see the opportunity to learn, you really kind of have permission from the market, almost in a way that we don't always see at the individual company level. Yeah,
and if we kind of like twist the conversation around from the company's perspective to the consumer's point of view, where do you see innovation coming to play there?
Yeah, so I like you said, I think
forgiving, are they more open to trying new things, or?
I think there's an openness. So again, I think that's why the big experiment, especially earlier, like in say March, April, May timeframe, when again, even Amazon was having trouble fulfilling, stuff, and people couldn't find toilet paper, and they couldn't find their favorite things. I think that forced people out of their own comfort zones as consumers, which is good and bad, right? If you had a very loyal customer base and you couldn't fulfill it, that's a threat. But at the same time, I think it just shows the need for constant paying attention to your brand and to what you're offering consumers, and to not just take them for granted, and to continually look for ways to innovate there. So consumers, I think they're open, especially in certain categories, to shift when there's not a huge burden on them to do something different. And obviously e-com is it's a very easy way to sort of engage with new brands and find new things, and then try it at home, right? Without risk. So that's why we're even seeing some of our own clients that were not necessarily D2C strictly. They were going to market through Amazon or big box retail. They're really paying attention now to e-commerce as a driver, because of these sort of shifting loyalties and their inability to reach their target customers through other ways. And again, I think consumers are responding to that and are kind of enjoying a lot of new things out there that maybe they were hesitant to try before. Even things like buy online, pick up in store, right? Or kind of the way you're having to pick up food now at a restaurant, where you kind of park and call in. Again, I think that's accelerated where things were going, but I think it's just made consumers more ready to try. And I think that's good, because it kind of, it gives the consumers the same attitude that we just talked about with businesses. Hey, maybe I need to just try something else here. Maybe I can give it a shot, right, for a couple times, and sign up for a new service or a new subscription, or maybe I will buy things like meal kits or whatever that I didn't really consider before. So I think that's another thing, because consumers are in experimental mode and they're willing to try new things outside their comfort zone. I think that's another good news for e-commerce and D2C brands.
Yeah. So look, honestly, I think that it could be seen as good news and bad news.
Yeah.
That if I have a huge dedicated fan base that comes back every year, every season, this might be a threat. And then maybe think about how can I create the best experience for them so that they won't want to look any further. On the other hand, if I'm a brand, if I'm a new brand, if I don't have that dominant position in a certain market, now is my chance to show that I can bring value to new people. They should be trying out my stuff and my website, and I can actually bring new fans to my brand.
Right. And we've already seen, right, in the market, there's been some analysis saying, in general, sometimes younger consumers are a little more brand agnostic. They can change more than maybe people in the past have changed. Part of that is just because D2C and tools like Shopify and other things are making commerce more democratic in terms of it's available at a lower cost. So you can have more people enter the market, right? It doesn't take a lot right now for a couple of people to bootstrap a new business and come and attack in a current industry, right? We've seen this from Warby Parker on down. So people are kind of used to that as well from a D2C standpoint. And so I think, that energizes, I think, certain industries. I think this is why it's also for people who do have an established consumer base and maybe have been around a while. I think it's good and healthy in the sense that it forces you to stay in that kind of entrepreneurial mindset and to continually test yourself. So we encourage our own clients, a lot of them got successful by challenging the status quo. Well, now that you're becoming the status quo, you can't leave behind that sort of attitude. And so part of this is also, we talked about technologies or innovation. I think part of this is really understanding your own customers, what motivates them, and being able to classify them in a way that you can personalize the experience, look for who the high value customers are, who are maybe more transient customers passing through, looking for deal of the day or sales or what have you. And so again, focusing your efforts on the right kind of consumers, the people that are a good brand match, understanding where maybe some of the people visiting right now are just checking things out and trying it, and being able to be more sophisticated about how your own consumers work and how they think, and where you can adapt to that and where you don't need to.
Yeah, I'm all for it, for innovative tech, for personalized and amazing customer experience. At Syte,
Right.
this is what we do. With the product discovery platform, and we truly believe that a better experience leads to brand loyalty.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech, a lot of innovative solutions that brands out there can consider. And obviously you guys are dealing with a lot of different things. I want to challenge you to do something that is virtually impossible. But if we try to look 3 years into the future, which in our day, almost like I would tell you, all right, let's look to 3050.
Right, exactly.
So if we are talking about tech, or maybe main trends that you predict that we'll be seeing more and more of, let's try and talk about maybe 2022, all right? Let's not go that far.
Right.
Where should we look for? And brands, what should they keep an eye on in terms of emerging trends of the future?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So yeah, I hope I might be scared to look at this tape in a couple, 3 years, but and tape, that's an old term. Yeah, this video. I think, again, looking at sort of talking to colleagues in the industry, seeing some of the analysis and watching the trends our own customers have, I think we'll see continued, because the industry was already going this way. I think you have continued growth of commerce and e-commerce as a percentage of overall spend. If you're talking about consumers, I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to see continued downward pressure in terms of prices and options and things. So I think that's going to continue. Whether, there's always going to be some consolidation and rise and fall of brands and things like that. But I think the kind of cloud-based subscription type options available to people, I think it's just going to get even cheaper and faster and more robust. So, more and more, I think technology helps business, but it's still the same business problems, right? It's still the same kind of things about being of value, being sticky, right? Finding a niche and talking to that audience. I think we're going to see continued, just like we've seen in other formats, like even music and movies and things. Consumers expect more and more tailored, personalized things. So there's less of a mass market in terms of everybody buys X, right? Just like it used to be a handful of radio stations. Now you can kind of have your own custom playlist all the time. And these algorithm-based things, I think, are just here to stay. And so you still layer business decisions on top of it, but I can see that continuing on and being more and more robust, and being smart about leveraging those kinds of tools are going to make the best companies stronger, and people that are behind in that and don't trust that kind of learning or AI and things, I think are going to struggle. So again, you still need smart people doing the right things, the right product, the right brand, reaching customers. I just think there's going to be a continued acceleration of things like AI and business intelligence and things like that, and data will be even more important, right? I think though the key is a lot of customers, come to us and say, I've got data, it's just overwhelming to me. I don't know what to do with the data. And so I think, again, the best customers and best brands are the ones that kind of know what to do with that. And again, enable themselves to do this quickly or in real time versus big planning cycles like we used to do. So I think one thing we're seeing that COVID did is it disrupted seasonality a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think maybe brands, and it also exposed gaps in people's supply chains and in their fulfillment, the ability to fulfill product. So I think maybe 2-3 years from now, people will be more focused on those flexibility. You're like, I don't want to have everything choke in one place. I don't want to be dependent on a single channel like Amazon. I don't want to, those kinds of things. I think it's been a good lesson. Hopefully we learn that. And so I think that the flexibility we're talking about, I hope at least gets baked into the business model of some of our companies. It's harder to predict to me, like kind of consumer stuff, because I think it depends on what happens at a macro level, right? In terms of, do people feel safe returning to public spaces and all of that longer term? That's harder to predict. I think that's a psychology thing. But I think that the companies that win will be the ones that are really in tune with consumer sentiment and are clearly able to draw a very bright line between who they are and what they're offering and what consumers need and feel. And that's not really anything new, but I think it's harder to do when everything feels kind of off kilter and fresh. I don't know that we'll ever go like, oh, like in March and April, I was thinking, well, we'll go through a period, who knows how long it is, and then we'll go back to the way it was. And I think the short answer is there's no way it was anymore. Something's fundamentally shifted. And if nothing else, I think you see this in working from home and doing video stuff like this instead of in-person meetings. I think that's here to stay as well.
Right. And maybe we'll see like a whole new type of retail experience. Maybe we'll see online techniques being introduced into the brick and mortar, and then we'll end up having like this super advanced in-store experience that for the consumer would feel as seamless as online shopping, because as you said, if brands will be able to leverage the data that they have online in an real world setting. Yeah.
We've heard about this, right? Like people were like, we love to integrate these worlds of digital and physical retail. I think this is going to accelerate that, right? Because we've talked about some ways people are being creative. And so, and we already know like malls, there was too much mall space. There was too many large stores. There's already been some experimentation before in the last, I would say 4 or 5 years on the retail footprint. Do we get smaller stores? Nordstrom and other brands have been playing around. Amazon itself plays around with retail. And so I think with malls being hurt even more and some physical retail being hurt even more by this pandemic, that accelerates that sort of store innovation thing. Because I think people still want public spaces, but I think it will accelerate the way digital and physical interact. And so whether that's smarter stores, if that's tools that people carry in the store, the way we're using mobile phones, what have you, maybe having more connected store associates so that they're smarter about who walks in. All that stuff is available or it's nascent, right? But I think it's just focused on, we actually have to solve those things now, right? We can't just say, oh, well, there's no physical retail anymore. Obviously there is. So we need to focus there. So yeah, I think in the next 2-3 years, we were already kind of doing that. But again, all the conditions we talked about are making this like a real world experiment. And I think in the next couple of years, some people are going to get that right. And we're going to see some really interesting, cool store concepts that maybe are, did a lot of hard lessons out of this year and maybe next year.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a reminder on my calendar for 2 years, and we'll go back to this recording. We'll see how we did in our prediction.
Yeah. We should go film ourselves in a store somewhere and say, wow, this is cool. So I don't know what they're going to do or what we're all going to do together, but I think it's going to be interesting, right? It'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure. These are, truly interesting times, and everything's changing super fast. So Doug, thank you so much for your time,
Absolutely.
for this great conversation. And also thank you for your partnership. You know that we're at Syte super happy to have you guys as partners.
We're glad to work with you as well. It really makes our job easier, right? And looking for good partners for our consumers and our customers who are serving them. So it's I love the ecosystem, love working with Syte as well, and looking forward to what we can do together.
Cheers. So thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy.
You too.
We'll touch base before that 2 years mark.
Yes. We don't need to wait that long, right?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. All right. So Doug, thank you very much.
All right.
Next time.